So, hello and welcome to all our parents, educators, and Montessori enthusiasts joining us today at Little Leaps. We are delighted to have you with us for this month's session. At Little Leaps, we deeply value conversations that inspire reflection, growth, and purposeful action in the lives of children, educators, and families. Today's topic is especially meaningful because change has become a constant part of education and leadership, and how we respond to it shapes the environments we create for children and adults alike. So it is my pleasure to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Lindsey Pollock. Dr. Pollock brings over 35 years of experience in education and currently serves as Provost of Sarasota University. Her journey spans public and private education as a teacher, social worker, Montessori administrator, consultant, and school leader. She previously led Garden Oaks Montessori in Houston for many years, where leading through change became an integral part of the school's journey. Beyond her leadership roles, Dr. Pollock has worked with schools across the United States and internationally, contributing to educational communities in Sweden, China, Brazil, Mexico, and Ghana. She is also a passionate advocate for social justice and continues to serve on nonprofit boards, including Montessori for Social Justice. Today's session, Embracing Change with Purpose, encourages us to see change not as disruption, but as an opportunity for reflection, discovery, and deeper alignment with our Montessori values. Dr. Pollock will help us explore how leaders and educators can approach change with curiosity, stay grounded in purpose, and create spaces where people feel heard and included throughout the process. So I'm certain today's session will offer thoughtful insights and practical inspiration for all of us. Thank you once again for being here, Dr. Pollock. We are truly honored to have you with us at Little Leaps. I know you have a presentation to share with us, but before you share the presentation, I would like you to share your journey so far as an educator, as a Montessorian, and as a professor. How did you see the change and the shift?
Thank you so much for your kind introduction. And I just want to say how excited I am to be here today. My journey to Montessori education is something that I am daily grateful for because it shifted my trajectory from the traditional classroom, where I had always been a proud advocate and implementer of constructivist education, of a constructivist approach. And so as a traditional educator, I had used centers and hands-on learning. In fact, I had even founded a private school here in the Houston area that was focused on constructivist learning. But what I didn't know at the time was that constructivist learning really had its roots in Montessori education. And the work that I had so admired from Piaget that I had been introduced to, I began to realize that Piaget and Montessori were actually contemporaries, and how odd it was that I'd never been introduced to Montessori education in my traditional education courses. So when I was hired as the principal at Garden Oaks Montessori, I immediately recognized that Montessori was what I'd always been looking for, and had very few opportunities to really interact with the methodology. And so as part of my journey in my leadership life, I then took the administrator credential here locally at the Houston Montessori Center. I completed the administrator credential and was well on my way to leading our ever-growing Montessori school. So over the course of time, I arrived at Garden Oaks in 2008. to a school that was really struggling. We had 405 students, and we were on the list for potential closure. At that time, Garden Oaks only had 5 Montessori classrooms, 3 early childhood, 2 lower elementary, and 1 upper elementary classroom. And I was told at the time, oh, well, that's just that triangle is how it has to be in public schools. We have lots of interest in early childhood, but parents understand that, Montessori for older kids is only for a select few children. And I thought, really? I don't see it that way. So I really worked to change the paradigm about maintaining those levels and keeping our kids in Montessori. And not long after, the district made the decision that we should become an all Montessori campus. So instead of having a traditional campus and a few Montessori classrooms, the mandate that we were given was to become an all Montessori campus. And so over the course of the next 10 years, I was at Garden Oaks for a total of 13 years. We transformed that campus of 405 students with a very small Montessori program to an all Montessori campus of just over 1,000 students. And we changed that pyramid to a more column model. We did have some attrition at the very top because we expanded through 8th grade. And so we did see that some students at the middle school ages especially chose programs that could offer more sports and things in our school district. But even then, we often had families coming back for all of the special events. They didn't really want to leave our school community. And I see one of my colleagues, Jenny McCord, who was with me at Garden Oaks as well. And we just celebrated our senior clap out yesterday, where the students who are now seniors in high school are invited back to the campus, and all the kids on the campus come out and clap for the seniors as they walk the campus one last time. So it was a beautiful ceremony yesterday, and it just reminded me how even when our children leave our schools, we remain connected. We're part of that global that global community, and that influence of Montessori, no matter how many years the kids were in Montessori, resonates and resides within them as they go out into the world. So it was really fun to see those students and families and teachers at the event yesterday. And just reminded me too, as I was getting ready for this presentation today, how there are so many changes that we experience. And I reflected on my journey and just the internal work that I've had the opportunity to participate in as I grew from, Montessori newbie to a more experienced and still learning practitioner that I am today.
Yes, yes, and I'm sure your journey has a lot to speak about. So we would love to, you to start your presentation. We are all waiting for it.
Thank you. Well, as I said to you earlier, I was really excited preparing this presentation, and hopefully we'll be able to cover everything. I might have gotten a little ambitious in my presentation, but I've got lots of content that I'd like to share with you. Are you all
We're
able
just
to
excited
see the
for everything.
slides?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes, yes, we could see the presentation.
Okay, perfect. Are you seeing the bar at the top, or are you only seeing the slides?
The bar is showing also.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Let me see how I practiced this in advance, and technology always works until you need it. and then it's always something different. There we go. Now can you just see the slides?
I think you have stopped sharing, so
Thank you for your patience, everyone. All right, here we go. Okay, now,
yes,
how's that?
yes, yes, we can see the presentation alone.
All right, let's see. There we are. All right, so here we are today, May 23rd, 2026. And we'll be talking, you've heard me talk a little bit about my journey as a Montessorian, and I continue to be someone who's impacted by change and a change maker. As a parent, I have watched the trajectory of my children, and most recently, my youngest daughter, Ashley, became a mom. And so this was another big change in our family. This is Ashley on the left as a baby, and as she prepared to give birth. Her husband's in the Air Force, so they've changed a lot as they've moved from place to place. And this is me with our little Freddie, who is our newest addition to our family. And I had the pleasure to go and spend some time with them. And just in the course of a year, 15 months, he has continued to change. And that picture on the far right is the most recent picture of him. And he's just a joy to be around, and always into something. You can see that mischief in his eyes. Change happens regardless of how we resist. Dr. W. Edwards Deming, who is a business person, has a quote. He said, "For the individual or the organization, it isn't necessary to change. Survival is not mandatory." So change happens, and how we react to change is key to how we move forward. And so I want everyone to think about just the changes that you've encountered since you woke up today, whether it was 10 minutes ago or 10 hours ago. If you would, in the chat, just type in at least 3 changes that you've experienced in your waking moments. What are 3 changes you've experienced today? And Madhuri, I can't see the responses, but I hope that you're able to see them.
Yes.
Could you share maybe some of the things that you're seeing in the chat? What are 3 changes that folks have experienced today?
Yes. While they are typing in, I might share the changes that I felt since morning today.
Yes, any changes you've experienced today? I know for me, here in the Houston area, we had a huge storm that went through the area last night. And I heard lightning and thunder and the rain beating against my house. And this morning, the temperature had dropped dramatically, and my plants are looking so much happier and healthier with that water that they now have in their systems. And so I know another change was just the temperature of the milk that I put in my coffee. I put my coffee cup in the microwave for 30 seconds and had nice warm milk. It was a change for me, just a small change that I was grateful for, because I love warm milk in my coffee. So I'm sure that y'all are thinking about those changes that sometimes we take for granted. Some of the changes we experience are second nature, and yet there are other changes that don't take a lot, that other decisions that may take time, like choosing which pair of shoes to wear or what top to put with those pants. While some people embrace new circumstances head on, learning to accept, adjust, and maximize change is key. And today we're discussing this profound truth. And Madhuri, I think you said it perfectly this morning in the introduction. change is the only constant in the world, which seems like a contradictory statement, but change surrounds us constantly. Even the act of breathing is a constant. Some would argue this is an exchange. It's a type of change. We're breathing out, we're breathing in. And whether it's that automatic change or a change that might be more difficult, change is a constant. And when we stop to think about it, there are lots of sayings about change. One friend of mine always says, the only good change is the kind of change in your pocket, which I realize now in a digital age, we have less change in our pockets, right? We're doing more banking online. So we don't find those pennies and quarters and dimes in the laundry that we used to. I actually have a little jar on top of my dryer where I used to throw the currency that I would find in the pockets of my family's clothing. But I've noticed in the last year or so, there's never any currency in that jar. And that alone is a change, right? That we have moved to digital banking. Another saying that I often hear is the only one who likes change is a baby with a dirty diaper. But those of us who work with infants and toddlers know that so often when we go to change that dirty diaper, what happens? The child on the changing table starts wailing and carrying on and kicking their legs. They don't want to be changed. Even when the diaper is soggy and droopy, they've gotten comfortable in that diaper and they don't want to change. Of all the change agents in the world, our children experience and influence some of the most profound and lasting changes in the lives of the adults around them. Their energy, curiosity, and innovative spirit have the power to reshape our lives and our communities, and sometimes may even ask us to question our sanity. Yet, with their boundless enthusiasm, they can even make the most peaceful adult feel like they're starring in a live episode of Survivor, Educator Edition. As the world evolves around us, we have to ask ourselves, are we keeping pace with these changes? Are we embracing change to prepare our children, not only for today, but also for tomorrow? And how does Montessori education empower our children for the future? How do we continue to change in response to the needs of our children and to the needs of our changing world? The Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy said, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves." And I think that Maria Montessori would have probably agreed with Tolstoy in this, because Maria Montessori talks incessantly in her works about the prepared adult and how we must be willing to embrace change within ourselves. Now, I know everyone here today is committed to that process, or you wouldn't be here wanting to know more about change. And it's possible that in your personal and professional lives that you may encounter people who are less excited about change or even about learning about change. But I like this image that's on the slide right now. This is an image that's entitled Eustress. Marc Chagall and the artist is Jackson Dainty. And he charted some of the events in Chagall's life that represented change. So you'll notice when you look at this picture, and I think it's just such a perfect example of change, in the upper left corner is the artist's palette, which Chagall talks about being heavenly inspired. On the below the palette on the left is the ghost of Bella from the painting The Soul of the City. On Chagall's shoulder is his beautiful living Bella, who was the subject of much of his art. Above Chagall in the top right corner is an example of his style of metamorphosis. You'll see the fiddler player who is half horse, half fiddler in a circus scene with lots of activity and change around him. Below the circus is a portion of a painting named Paradise, Adam and Eve, and we know there were lots of changes happening in the garden at the beginning of the creation story. At the bottom of the painting is the unique image of a bride and groom riding a giant rooster. And we know that weddings are also markers of change. And in the lower right of the Russian city of Vitebsk was Chagall's birthplace. And it's a reminder of birth and the cycle of life and the changes. And during the time of Chagall's life, there were many changes. As a Jew, he encountered much change in his life and was witness to many of the great upheavals in the world. So I think this picture really represents, even today, some of the global challenges and changes that we are experiencing. Dr. Montessori talked about change in many of her works, and this quote, I think, is indicative of change. She encouraged us to change our treatment of this newborn man. We must pave his passage from one world to another with great care. A new spirit has come into the world, and we must help him adapt to the new environment. We must have specialists in the treatment of the newborn. In my family, we've just experienced the transition of my mother-in-law to join our ancestors, and yet we continue to celebrate milestones of the children in our lives. My oldest grandson just graduated from high school this month, and our precious little Freddie changes every day as he learns new words and new ways to explore the world. You have to be brave to be part of the human condition. To come here, we must realize that the process and the lives that we lead are not easy, nor is the arrival easy for everyone. Freddie, for example, is a miracle of IVF conception. He was delivered by C-section due to medical complications, and his mother had a scary circumstance that nearly took her life in the delivery process. But that's behind us, and we embrace these changes as we go through them, sometimes with trepidation and fear, and other times with deep reflection and celebration. But the bottom line is the way that we react is our choice. They say that there's a newborn traveler in each of us, that we are an unfolding story. Just as we say kind words to the newborn and their parents, remember that the people around us and the person within us also needs the nourishment of kind words to make our collective path lighter. For an infant, every day, even every moment, is a transformative change. And for us as adults, it's important to remember that whatever we say and whatever we do makes a difference in our lives and in our world. The habits that we develop, the interactions with people around us may have an immediate impact, and other times it may be years later, just like yesterday when I went to see those seniors who are graduating from high school. It was funny. One student came up to me and, she started a story just like so many of my own biological children say to me, "Do you remember the time?" And I think, oh my gosh, what's going to come next? What did I do? What is it that they remember? And sometimes we see that immediate impact, and sometimes we hear those stories about some little thing that we did that we might have been doing out of habit, that is still resonating with a person, sometimes years later. And there are times that our actions will never know the impact that it made. That smile that you offered to a complete stranger, opening a door to someone that you have never met before. It may be in that small interaction that you've saved someone or given just a flash of encouragement to that person who you might never see again. It's important to remember that while we can't stop the waves of change, you can learn to surf them. I love this picture, it by Joy Haro. You can find it online. And in this picture, you see people riding the waves. And I like to think that they're riding the waves of change. And we know that change happens in many speeds. Lightning speed, slow snail's pace speed. We can change worlds of perception overnight. We can suddenly lose everything, or in the blink of an eye, gain what we have always hoped and dreamed for. Some changes take centuries to reveal themselves. Today, there are islands of trash, plastic, floating in seas where trash has been dumped for centuries. Climatologists warns that we'll experience more powerful storms and more widespread earthquakes from years of cumulative, large and small transgressions of disrespect to our planet. Our choices have consequences, and our decisions to change or not change may determine the fate of our planet. We keep our hearts open no matter what happens, and we act with integrity, even when we are in the most chaotic of shifts, as we are now here on our beloved Earth, which is our home. And I don't know about you, but this is the only home I've got. There is no plan B. I don't have another planet that I can jettison myself to. So I encourage everyone here today to be thinking about ways that we can change our daily habits to save our planet, whether that's recycling or composting, growing your own produce, whether in a small little garden in your kitchen or out in your backyard. Surfers, as in this picture, know how to successfully move through waters. And you align your sight with a place on the horizon and keep moving. The ocean teaches us that conditions are always changing. And for educators, we must keep our eyes on the horizon of peace, kindness, and hope for the future, no matter the size of the waves. And we've got plenty of waves in our world right now. And for those of you in the United States, there have been seismic changes in our landscape, especially as it has impacted the world of education. But fortunately, we all have Montessori education to depend on at this time, to rely on, which is demonstrated in this slide today. At the time that Dr. Montessori introduced her 4 planes of development and this concept of centering the child in education, she was considered revolutionary and had, I think, a seismic impact on the world of education. Dr. Montessori's approach was considered a new lens on education. She described the 4 planes of development that are characterized by change, So we know that new skills are learned, there's a peak, and students then embed those skills into their lives and practice those skills as they continue through life. They then embark on the next stage and have this phase of significant steep growth, and then embracing those skills, perfecting those skills as they prepare for the next big change. During these planes of development, we recognize the social aspects and physical characteristics that define each plane. Yet, there is an interconnectedness between the developing human and the people around them who are instrumental in those changes. And so I want to pause right here and just ask our attendees today, as you look at these planes of development, if Maria Montessori were in the room with you today, would you share with her any changes that you're seeing in these planes of development? Do you think these are still the same today as they were at the time of Dr. Montessori? Are our children developing differently today than they were 100 years ago? So if you would, in the chat, just jot down some ideas that you have. You don't have to contradict her, but you might want to inform Dr. Montessori that maybe our kids are changing differently or at a different rate or pace than they were 100 years ago. What do you think?
Well, I would like to say that I see a lot of similarity between the first 6 years and the adolescence period. And I work with younger children between 0 to 3, and I completely agree with Dr. Montessori. I know that science has come up with lot many changes, lot many research, and lot many new discoveries about children. But having said this, I think Maria Montessori was way ahead of her time, and she knew exactly what she was observing. So there may be few changes, but I overall don't see as many changes as we can, claim that she was wrong.
Right. Yeah. And I think really, I think the changes are still in this sequential order. So I think she was spot on as far as the time, the line of development. What I keep thinking is that certainly biologically, we're seeing children maturing at different rates than we might have in the past, simply because of the food sources. Sometimes, unfortunately, the enhancements that are in the foods. We see some children developing these physical milestones at a more rapid pace with those changes in mind. I think so. Jose has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pollock. Just to highlight the importance of the technology in this roadmap and how the social media especially has impacted on this roadmap very profoundly in terms of how this has affected the self-image of the children, the relation, the prosociality, the way they see the relations, social relations between them, how they even have affected to their neuro brain plasticity and learning process. So I think this is also, if Maria Montessori were in this room, I'm sure she will be so aware about this impact and how to manage this properly, especially with this artificial intelligence disruption. I think is an important point to consider today.
Thank you, Jose.
Well, I have to add here to Jose's point is, yes, as much as technology has brought a lot of changes, I see Monica also saying the same thing. She's saying technology exposes one plane to the behavior of another at a rapid rate. For example, those from 6 to 12-year-old now have the access to see the global influencers who are between the ages of 18 to 24, and they try to imbibe some of their behaviors, some of their traits, developmental traits, and they physically mature faster than other, the older age group, or, as before. Having
Sure.
said this, I feel that if Maria Montessori was there, I think she would have definitely emphasized more on freedom within limits. I think children in this age, in this age, time and age I am talking about, need more of freedom with limits than I think in olden times, perhaps.
Yes. No, I think that's a really, pardon me, really important point. Thank you. And speaking of Dr. Montessori, we see her here in this picture. And I think that within the Montessori framework, we realize that children aren't merely passive recipients of knowledge. They're active participants, not only in their education, but in exploring and inquiring about the world around them. And to both, the participants' responses, we recognize that there is an impact of all of the technology in so many different forms that we may not even be aware of yet. And we know that, skills are built by scaffolding skills, and that biology does play a part in the rate at which children are able to implement and navigate some of these skills. So, excuse me, when we think about aligning Montessori education with world trends, we might consider if there are additional planes of development that we might even add to enhance her model. Recently, in the AMS article on matrescence, or that period of developing as a mother, the author encourage us to consider that this is another phase of human development in becoming a parent and becoming a mother. For many of us who attended Montessori trainings, sometimes our trainers may have messaged to us that there were sacred aspects of the delivery of lessons from which we could not deviate. And at the risk of sounding like a heretic, I'm here to challenge some of our assumptions and encourage us to remember that our task is to center children in our efforts. Children in the context of the world they are living in today. And I know that sometimes when I would be talking to a person who was working their way through their albums and guiding a child through the lessons, I would interrogate the sequence, and I would say, well, it seems as if Lindsey's ready for abstraction. Do they really need all of these other lessons? And I'll never forget, one of my teachers said to me, oh no, they have to do every single lesson. They can't skip any one because my trainer said XYZ. And so as we think about our Montessori classrooms and we think about the lessons that we prepare and present children, are we truly meeting the needs of the humans around us, whether they be children, our colleagues, adults that we are leading? And I think another extension of the planes of development would be elder care and the elder experience. We're now seeing the adaptation of Montessori philosophy and methodology to elder communities. And I challenge everyone to think about planes of development in the human condition. Is midlife a plane of development that we have not yet explored? Could it be that there are development markers that might be changing? So in our currently changing landscape that is characterized by technology, climate change, social justice challenges, we face an imperative to rethink our educational practices. Are we preparing our children to navigate these complexities? And are we changing to meet the needs of our children? I love this quote from Dr. Montessori Speaks to Parents. She said, if we change our whole attitude and say to ourselves, my child knows what's best for him, let us, of course, watch that he comes to no harm, but instead of trying to teach him our ways, let us give him the freedom to live his little life in his own way. Then perhaps if we are observant, we shall learn something about the ways of childhood. And I would extend that to say about the ways of life. When we watch, observe, and honor the children in our lives, we have the opportunity to learn even more about ourselves. I recently read an article about accepting the whole child into our classrooms, and how instead of looking at a child as something we need to fix or something we need to pour into, if we accept them as their whole intact selves, that we have an opportunity then to truly guide them through their interpretation of life to be a whole human. And of course, I know people will say, well, they can't hurt themselves, they can't hurt others. Absolutely. We are there to guide them and to help them understand how we are all interacting with one another. But they're not a broken human, they're a developing sacred human that we may need to change our attitudes and approaches with. We have an opportunity by changing our mindset to truly embrace and grow with the child and alongside them. And it makes me think of, excuse me, a fable called the Five Monkeys Fable. And there's a story about a researcher who had 5 monkeys in a control situation. And the way the story goes, excuse me, 5 monkeys were placed in a cage as a part of an experiment. In the middle of the cage was a ladder with bananas on the top rung. Every time a monkey tried to climb the ladder, the experimenter sprayed all the monkeys with icy water. Eventually, each time a monkey started to climb the ladder, the other ones pulled him off and beat him up so they could all avoid the icy spray. Before long, none of the monkeys would go up the ladder to grab that bunch of bananas. Before long, the experimenter then substituted one of the monkeys in the cage with a new monkey. The first thing the new monkey did, you can guess it, right? Was try to climb the ladder to reach the bananas. After several beatings, the new monkey learned the social norm. He never knew why the other monkeys wouldn't let him go for the bananas, because he had never been sprayed with the icy water. He'd only been stopped by the other monkeys in the cage. But he quickly learned that the behavior would not be tolerated by the other monkeys. One by one, each of the monkeys in the cage was substituted for a new monkey until none of the original group remained. Every time a new monkey would enter the cage, the rest of the group would pull him down, even those who had never been sprayed with the icy water. By the end of the experiment, The 5 monkeys in the cage had learned to follow the rule. Don't reach for the top. Don't go for the bananas, without any of them knowing the reason why. And I ask you, and I have experienced this myself, have you ever heard the phrase, "We don't do it that way"? Because that's the way we don't do things around here. Don't try that. That's not the way we operate. And when we think about the opportunity for change and the way we embrace new people into our groups, into our schools, into our communities, do we ever have that new person? I'm not suggesting that anyone here is like a monkey, but when we think about human behavior, do we see any parallels to this experiment? Do we resist change, or do we hold other people back because that's not the way it's ever been done? Just a question. But I know for myself, I have heard that phrase more than once in my life when I have introduced a new idea. Oh, no, that would never work. You know, I think someone tried that once, but it didn't work. Don't do it. That's not the way we do things around here. And when we think about proposed changes or changes that we encounter, do we interrogate that? Do we truly embrace change? Or are we one of those people, or do we encounter those people who try to hold us back? There's a great deal of research around the phenomenon of change. Dr. Kubler-Ross created what you may know or be familiar with around the work of death and dying. She calls it a change curve. And what researchers have found is that this change curve isn't only associated with the phenomenon of death and dying, but also in changes in organizational cultures, with changes of CEOs, with changes of policies, with changes of things that have always been the same. Other models of change include steps in change management processes and the U-shape model of change, similar to Kubler-Ross, starting with denial, resistance, exploration, and then resistance. And no matter what model you examine, there is resistance or discomfort along the way. I'm always reminded of my brother, who's 6'6", and as he was growing somewhere in his adolescence, I remember him crying out and, saying, "Oh, my legs are hurting." His body was changing, and that was not without some degree of discomfort. I'm not sure I'm going to say this philosopher's name right, but this Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "You can't step in the same river twice." Education is like a river that seems to be running faster and faster. In fact, for many of us, I know for myself, it sometimes feels like being in whitewater rapids, not a gentle flowing stream. But helping others around us prepare for change is key, because as we said at the beginning, the only constant in life is change. Whether you're the head of a school, a guide, a parent, a student, or any or all of the above, learning to navigate change is fundamental. Peter Senge said, "People don't resist change, they resist being changed." As educators, we pour our hearts and souls into the work with our students and preparing our classrooms. We work long, long hours. Sometimes it feels, I know I've felt like there just weren't enough minutes or hours in a day or in a week. 24/7, we're committed to making our classrooms the very best. Our identities as educators can, though, sometimes feel threatened when there's a new idea or suggestion to change. Remember that image of an infant needing a diaper change? I know I have felt much like that infant when I was faced with an edict for change or a mandate from my school district when I was a principal or a teacher or a parent. It was essential to acknowledge that feeling and then to move through that moment of emotion, or maybe a few moments of emotion, to a place of productivity where I could strategically engage my team and plan for effective implementation to benefit my school community. But it goes without saying, it can be frustrating and scary. And I think as educators, we could come up with a new model of change because as educators, some of the questions we ask ourselves immediately include things like, how could something I've been doing so long and so well need change? Does this mean I wasn't doing the right thing for my kids? Am I a bad teacher, a bad parent, a bad leader? It's important to clear the air there and know that we're all doing the very best we can with what we're given in that moment. And moving our paradigm and change doesn't mean that we're bad people or that we've been purposely trying to do something wrong. It means that we have an opportunity to do things even better. So how do we support change in ourselves and with our colleagues? Again, there are many models for educational change. This is called the SCARF model, and it's based on some of the current research around educational change. We look at status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. Remember that our brains are wired to minimize danger and maximize reward. So as we approach change, our brains are automatically telling us that there is some element of fear, of danger, of self-preservation, that it's an automatic response. So we want to make sure that that reptilian brain isn't overshadowing our opportunity for change. The SCARF model is laid out for you here as well. But using a model like this to analyze the activators and the benefits for change can really help you if you are navigating the waters of change. We're surrounded by change. We've talked about that a little earlier, about technology being a big change agent in our world. We're functioning today in a world that's different than one we were functioning in just a few months ago, truly. And children are rapidly adapting to changes all around them. I was going through my many bookshelves this past week, and I came across a book about instructional technology. And it was a nice, thick book talking about all the different platforms that we could use as educators. I believe the book was published in 2001. And as I went through the pages of that book, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many of these platforms that have closed. They don't exist anymore. And we are constantly seeing new tools and new opportunities popping up around us. So the world is changing. I Googled the world of change right now. Here in Houston, they are coming up with robotic spiders at Rice University to help with human surgeries and human conditions. Finnish engineers are creating sand batteries. At City University in Hong Kong, they're developing e-skin for long distance hugs. So it would be like a shawl that you would wear. And then if you're talking to a person, on the other side of the world, maybe if my husband was traveling, I could put this shawl on and he could put his shawl on and we could hug each other from long distance. There are AI artists now creating beautiful images and movies and brain reading robots at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne. So wherever you go, it seems like change is happening all around us. Darwin, I think, had a beautiful quote. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Some of you might remember Brad Pitt in the movie Moneyball. He said, adapt or die. And that phrase has resonated in my head many times since that time. And I think about all the changes that I've witnessed in my life, things that have gone away, like drive-in movies, drive-in restaurants, rotary phones, Tower Records, Kodak cameras, Blockbuster Video, and so many more. The choice is clear: extinction or irrelevance or change. Dr. Montessori knew in her time the approach children had to change. She developed a revolutionary approach to education, and I ask everyone to interrogate for themselves: have we become stagnant? And is there still room for us to change? I know our time is coming to an end, so I have so many more slides and stories, but I want to at least leave a minute if there are any questions. But I encourage you, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Lyrics from a famous Michael Jackson song, The Man in the Mirror. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. I have a story that I can share online, Madhuri, with our participants about change in schools. It really emphasizes the fact that we sometimes, like Einstein said, we do the same thing over and over again, the definition of madness. We do the same thing over and over again, and we keep expecting a change. And sometimes we habitually fall into the same strategies or the same holes. I co-authored a book called Setting the Stage for Learning, in which our chapter 5 is completely dedicated to change. And we know that storytelling can help people learn concepts effectively. And that's what this book is based on. Times have changed and science has made great progress, and so has our work, but our principles have only been confirmed. And along with that, our conviction that humankind can hope for a solution to its problems, among which the most urgent of those are peace and unity. Only by turning its attention and energies to the discovery of the child and to the development of the greatest potentialities of the human personality in the course of its formation. Thank you for the time to be with you here today, and I appreciate everyone preparing the world for my little guy, Freddie, and for your commitment to making the world a better place. If you have a chance, I encourage you to watch this video. It's called Mr. Jensen, and it's the story of a teacher who truly changes his perspective to center the child and the profound impact and long-term implications it's had for at least this one student. The world is changing. We must too. I thank you for having me here today, and I've included my information. If anyone would like to reach out to me, you can reach me at lindsey.pollock@sarasotauniversity.edu. And I've included my mobile number here. I'm on WhatsApp. So call me from anywhere. I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. I see you have your hand up, Jose.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Pollock, for this wonderful presentation.
Hey, can you give me a moment? Dr. Pollock, could you please stop sharing the screen so that we can see the screen and we can see you properly?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I must tell you that this was one of the most unique presentations so far, and there was so much to learn from you. I have made a a list of notes from this session that I'm going to also share and discuss with you. But before that, I would like Jose to come and share whatever he wanted to. Please, Jose.
No, thank you very much. Dr. Pollock is amazing. First of all, please share my greetings to the great Heather, that is very admired. Is wonderful. I'm also a great admirer of Chagall. We have here in Zurich a wonderful artworks from Chagall, so he's a great artist that I admire. And I have recently the best example of change in a Swiss train. In my wagon, we were very calm and in silent, and immediately a baby with the mother was entering on the wagon, saying hello everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an immediate change in the mood of all the travelers, and was instant. I mean, was so powerful, the impact of these little babies with a smile saying everybody hello. That's it, hello in German, but that was the case, and it's an amazing example. I just want to refer and relate with your wonderful presentation to two brief questions. The first, as you know, I'm working with children in the context of museums and cultural institutions, and I facilitate process of internal change in these organizations through children participation and involvement. So it's a kind of Trojan horse, a strategy, because the adults in the room relax, and it's a trap because they consider children unable to start structural systemic changes. That is exactly what they do. When you create a dynamic of participation as I'm trying to facilitate. So what is interesting is that they relax, they start to think that, well, they are children, so no worries. That's exactly the point. When they start to interact with the children in this way, structural changes start. And that's what is very interesting, because affects their mental models to perceive the role of the children inside an organization, even through micro changes. Yes. And it's so interesting to see how they start these micro changes relate with profound, deep changes. So this is the first question: how do you see this correlation between little changes with big structural changes? And the second point is related with these structural changes, that is technology and artificial intelligence that you mentioned at the end of your presentation. How, from Montessori perspective, we can tackle these disruptive changes to preserve the humanistic legacy of Maria Montessori, that put the children always on the center. I'm trying to do this by by researching this children participation in artificial intelligence, by starting deep listening to them and creating new paradigms and new models. But I'm curious about what's your vision about this challenge that we are constantly living in the families, in the schools, where the new reality is completely conditioned by this disruption, and we need professionals skills and train on this challenge.
Well, I think you've had some profound questions, Jose, that each could probably be their own 1-hour topic. But to your first question, there's been a lot of dialogue and research and debate around changing adult behaviors. And, the question is always, does the habit change first? Is it the heart that changes, the mind that changes, or the behavior that changes, right? And so what we know is, from an organizational standpoint, while we can try to impact the heart, right, that willingness, that spirit, we might have a harder time actually reaching that internal person, because at the end of the day, it's the person who's having that internal dialogue. That's personal work. But what we can do as organizational leaders is we can change policy and we can change procedures. And while that may be uncomfortable, it's important to help people understand the reason. So appealing to the intelligence and to the capacity for reasoning. These are the reasons we're going to make these changes, and these are the behavioral measures by which I will know that this is being implemented. And sometimes that can be really uncomfortable for the leader, because then if we're serious about the change, we have to hold people accountable. And those difficult conversations are difficult conversations. They're no fun for anyone, but they do become easier with practice. And it doesn't mean that it's an inhumane or unkind conversation. It means this is something that I'm responsible for as the leader, and I must insist and monitor that these things are going to change. And what we see over time then is that people who might have been reluctant to change, who might have felt a certain way about the change, start then to see the impact of the change. They may have gone unwillingly to that change, but as they see the impact and the positive impact, and perhaps increased outcomes, and sometimes it even makes their job easier and more fulfilling once they start practicing those changes. But change can be hard, which is why in the change research, they always talk about, finding your early adopters, finding the person who you can count on, who's going to take this initiative and put it into practice, because they already have the heart, they have the intellect, they understand why these changes are being made, and they can be your early adopters and implementers of the change. To your second point, I think it was, if I recall now, the technology. I'm reminded of the book Atomic Habits, because in it, Adam Grant talks about just a tiny change, and that with small changes, we see that that impact magnified, right? So that multiplier effect. Like interest on your bank account, you keep earning more, and then you're earning more interest on a larger principal. There's so much coming down and happening all around us. I encourage everyone to be a part of some kind of network or journal, educator journal around change. I think Dr. Montessori was innovative, and she would have been very curious about the role of technology. And I think it varies by age group. Certainly, for very young children, we know there are some detriments to too much screen time for very young children. I have a friend who's a optometrist, and she's saying, there's a increased rate of nearsightedness now in children who are being exposed to too much screen time at an early age. So, I think with technology and changes that it's important to be willing to change, but also to be informed about changes and what is that technology that will best suit the needs of my children that I can responsibly navigate and implement with fidelity and safety for our kids. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns that I hear from teachers is this going to be a safe resource for my children? Who's getting the information? Is some weird message going to pop up? Some unsafe message going to pop up when I'm not looking? Are predators going to be out there? So with technology, it is an opportunity for change, and it's something that we want to lead and maintain humanity in the process. Kate Broughton is doing a lot of work here in the States around the implementation of technology, especially around AI, and maintaining a safe environment. And I know we're way over time. I see it's already 12:12, Madhuri, and I thank you, Jose, for your questions. I hope I've touched on some of them. And I want to be respectful of our audience. I know folks have lots of things to do. They're probably getting ready for bed in parts of the world, and some people are on to lunch plans.
We actually are very excited listening to you. So sleep is right now at the back seat. While I was just listening to your presentation and there were so many things that I made notes of. One thing that you showed in your initial image was, and you were talking about a child while changing the diaper.
Yes.
They don't like the change, right? But in my experience as a parent, I am seeing a journey of my own daughter, and I see that children, when they are young, are still more open to change. But as they grow older, your statement about the thing that you said, minimize danger and maximize reward, it becomes more prominent.
Yes.
And as they enter teenage, I see it a very dominant personality or character. As much as we are giving right sort of freedom and right limits, yet at some point, as a parent also, I have felt that I also have questioned myself, what did I do wrong? Where was I going wrong? And this happened in the morning today itself. I mean, I had a vision and my daughter has a different vision, and we are not on the same page, and it does dishearten me at times, but I am also trying. Since morning, I have been internalizing the fact that she has different priorities and I have different priorities. So I have to change and move forward in order to survive. Like you said, survival is not mandatory, but to move forward is the only way. And change is inevitable in that case. So to answer to Jose's question as well, be it personal or professional, space, I think sometimes change is just inevitable. If we are rigid and we have that mindset of we have to do it this way, then I think it gets difficult for people to change. And when you are finding it difficult to change, then it becomes difficult to survive with upcoming new changes and new world that is coming each day. Like you said, I was reading this book, Sophie's World, and that is where I read this quote for the first time by the Greek philosopher Heraclitus, I think he's.
Yes.
You can't step in the same river twice. He's talking
Yes.
about the change. So it's.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the nature, he is saying, the nature is
That's
changing.
right.
You have to change. So it's
That's right.
beautiful and beautiful for you to bring this quote here to give that reference. I mean, I love the connection, the way you gave the connection, and the other quote, people don't resist change, they resist being changed, is so appropriate. And this is what makes us reflect on our behavior. Are we ready to be changed?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a constant process. I don't pretend that I have all the answers. This is a process that I'm continually working on as well, day by day, hour by hour. And the people around me, say my friends, my family. I was talking to someone the other day and she was really struggling with this dilemma. And she said, I just hope it's all going to work out. And I said, well, it's all going to work out. I mean, this isn't going to be forever, this dilemma that we're talking about. It is going to work out. It just may not work out the way we'd like it to, or the way the way we're anticipating, or the way we think it would be the best. But it is going to work out. So we may not, we may be working to impact a situation or an encounter that we're having with someone. And it's important to remember that, again, we have the power within us to control our own behaviors and our own perceptions and the way in which we allow things to change us for the good, for the better, hopefully, right? They're all growth opportunities if we frame it in that way.
Absolutely. So thank you, Dr. Pollock, for your time today and beautiful presentation. Like I said, so many takeaways. I'm going to again go through the video, and I think I'm going to make a lot of notes. It's wonderful. It is wonderful because it is insightful for us. It is giving me an opportunity to self-reflect. As much as we talk about change, how much are we changing ourselves is also a question. Deep inside, we have to answer that to ourselves first before talking to others. So it's a good opportunity for me to go through the video again and then reflect on how I see the world and then maybe make that change possible. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be sharing this video with all of them as well. So yeah, though I think you have missed some of the slides, so it would be great if they have the presentation with them as well.
Perfect.
But I must tell you that if it was explained by you, I think that would have made more impact.
Well, maybe we can get together again in the future.
Yes, absolutely. We would.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope you go out and make it a great rest of your day.
Yes, thank you. And all of you have a great weekend. Thank you, Dr. Pollock, once again. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.